This is a video by the International Forced Rape Timeline. I set up a Patreon for this website on May the 30th and was extremely disappointed to receive not a single pledge. I still haven't, and it is now July, that's 2017. I did though receive a donation from Mr E of a Voice for Men forum, and on June the 9th I received a very generous one-off donation from a legal professional, someone I haven't actually met, although I have spoken to him over the phone. This video is for him and concerns a subject with which he is intimately familiar: historical allegations of sexual assault. If you haven't heard of Jian Ghomeshi, he was a radio host in Canada, an extremely popular one. Dave Lee Travis was a zany disc jockey in the UK for 4 decades. Neither man stood trial for rape, but both had their careers trashed by lying and, in the case of DLT, demented women. You will find the Ghomeshi case on the Forced Rape Timeline under the Ghomeshi Conspiracy at this URL. DLT was a victim of the Operation Yewtree witch hunt. You will find a number of references to that in the database. He stood trial on 14 charges, was found not guilty on 12 and retried on the 2 undecided. With unbridled sadism, the imbeciles of the Crown Prosecution Service added another charge, and at the retrial he was convicted of 1. He said at the time he was afraid that if they threw enough mud, some of it would stick, or worse to that effect. I'm going to discuss only one of the allegations against him, one that is particularly striking because it illustrates both how dangerous are allegations of this nature and how many of the women, and on occasion men, who make them are sad, pathetic individuals who are seeking ways to explain away the reasons they have wasted their pathetic lives. This is a clip of Travis arriving at court. Listen carefully to what the reporter says about this alleged victim. 40 years of hell.
DJ Dave Lee Travis is alleged to have put a woman through 40 years of hell after he assaulted her at the opening of a hospital radio station. The woman, 19 at the time and the latest to give evidence in the trial against the veteran DJ, told Southwark Crown Court that Travis had a haunting look on his face as he put his hand up her skirt while they were alone. The witness, who said she was brought up a strict Catholic, said the incident left her too scared to go out on her own. Breaking down in tears, she said her ordeal had had an effect on her love life with her late husband, who would never know why.
In 1973, Travis opened a hospital radio station, and his accuser, a teenager at the time, was a carnival queen. This trial received heavy publicity, and someone who read or heard about her testimony contacted DLT's legal team, telling them, "I was there and I videoed it." This video, or part of it, was actually posted to YouTube. Unfortunately, I didn't download it at the time, and for whatever reason it has now been deleted, but it showed clearly that Travis turned up with his wife on his arm and an entourage in tow. At what point did he sneak off and grope this teenager, thus ruining her life? If this allegation and most of the others against Travis were motivated by madness, those against Jian Ghomeshi were motivated by malice. His problems really began when a former girlfriend accused him of physically assaulting her and of cracking one of her ribs. Ghomeshi did not deny the injury, but said it was sustained during consensual sex, so-called rough sex, something I've always found revolting and bizarre in equal measure, but apparently a lot of people enjoy it, quote unquote. Homosexuals engage in it too, and for some people the beating is a substitute for the actual sex. When news leaked out, Ghomeshi was fired by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, something that is understandable for someone who presents a family show who has a Mr Clean image like he did. But what happened next was that a slew of women came forward, making similar allegations. The most prominent of these was Lucy Decatur. Eventually, Ghomeshi stood trial for violent attacks on her and 2 other women. The worst alleged attack was an act of choking. These allegations dated to 2002 and 2003. In other words, they were over a decade old. 3 alleged victims making similar claims with no apparent motive to lie looks bad. How could he not be guilty? Fortunately for Ghomeshi, he had kept his emails from these women and at least 1 handwritten letter. That was enough to prove they were all lying. Even worse, there was evidence they had conspired together through social media to bring him down. In other words, this was a case of hell having no fury in triplicate. These women all pursued Ghomeshi with some vigour, but though he was polite, as most media people in his particular field usually are, he had no real interest in them. He did though allow one of them to give him a hand job after he was alleged to have assaulted her, something the sisterhood would have us believe should not diminish her credibility one iota. Ghomeshi was acquitted without taking the stand, and a second trial relating to a fourth accuser was abandoned when he agreed to sign a peace bond. Predictably, the usual suspects refused to face the facts, parroting the chant that so-called survivors should be believed. Recently, there has been an attempt in Canada to further weaken the ability of an accused to defend himself against malicious allegations of sexual assault, and things are likely to get worse. As in the UK, there are no statutes of limitations in Canada for criminal offences. There were once, but they were abolished, and as here, a man can be dragged into court, convicted, and his life trashed on the uncorroborated testimony of some demented or malicious female. If it can happen to the DLTs and the Jian Ghomeshis of this world, it can happen to you too. Bear that in mind the next time you read about some poor sap being accused of raping a woman months or years ago, a woman who didn't come forward at the time because she was afraid she wouldn't be believed.